Okay, good morning. I am taking an early morning walk across the Wye Downs. I'm at the Devil's Kneading Trough, so you can see the Devil's Kneading Trough. Really beautiful part of the Kent Downs, and it's a great time of year to be out and about looking for Lepidoptera, moths and butterflies. So there's plenty flying around at the moment, but one of the things that I'm doing today is I am showing off a little bit of what I do as a researcher. And as a researcher, I spend a bit of my time identifying insect pheromones. And a pheromone, for those who don't know what a pheromone is, it's a chemical compound given off by an insect, usually a female, very common in moths, and it's given off in order to attract a mate. So usually these things are sex pheromones. You do get other types of pheromones, alarm pheromones, when insects are alarmed and trying to alert other insects about it, but sex pheromones are very common. And today I want to show you how a sex pheromone works. This little piece of rubber that I've got here is a little rubber septum, which is essentially just a rubber septum that you'd use for a glass vial if you were in a lab and you were trying to seal it. And it's embedded in it is a synthetic attractant for a female zygaenid moth called Zygina filipendulae, which is a six-spotted burnet moth, for those of you who know about moths. Beautiful diurnal day-flying moth. And you find them here, in quite low numbers actually, but you find them here. You find them here. Okay, hopefully you can see this, on the downs. So these males here have been able to smell the chemical which I've embedded into this little piece of rubber, and now these males are trying to mate with the little bit of rubber because they think it's a female. It smells like a female. So that did not take very long. I'm going to leave those ones and move a little bit further out into the downs. But you can see it's a beautiful bit of habitat here. Really nice bit of scarp slope, which means, and this is chalk that we're on at the moment. And this is exactly the kind of geology and topology that gives you nice thin topsoils, fairly low nutrient, which gives you really nice high plant diversity. So you can see there's all sorts of really nice plants. Things like bed straws, which are quite good indicators of grassland environments, good quality grassland environments. And the food plant of this moth is somewhere around here, which is, let's see if I can find any. Aha! Can I turn my camera around? No, maybe not. Which is this little guy here. Let's see if I can see this properly. If you see these little yellow flowers, this is Lotus corniculatus. And they have these kind of the roundish shaped leaves, like these ones. Oops, hard to see. Kind of oval shaped, slightly pointed leaves, and the flowers, if you look them up, they kind of look like a bird's foot, hence the name, the common name, which is bird's foot trefoil. And one of the interesting things about the bird's foot trefoil and the zygaenid moth, the burnet moth, is that the burnet moth takes some of the nasty toxins that you find inside bird's foot trefoil. So they particularly produce these things called cyanogenic glucosides, or basically cyanide. And the plants produce these things in order to protect themselves, but the moths are able to store away these toxic chemicals and protect themselves. So actually these moths are quite toxic, and if they're eaten by a bird or a small animal, they'll find them very bitter. Seeing you should be using both hands when you're walking around in the field. And yes, they're very bitter, but also quite toxic if you ate enough of them, and that's enough to dissuade animals from eating them. And they display the fact that I'm really being followed by a lot of moths now. They display the fact that they are toxic by showing what's called aposematic coloration. Now, hopefully, let's have a look. I'm absolutely covered in moths now, so I'm just going to show you one of these burnet moths. Now, I've grabbed this little male by the antennae. This is the best way to hold these things without doing too much damage to them. And you can see I'm covered in these things now because the pheromones present. And you can see they have these beautiful bright red colours to them. So the moths are literally all over my phone now at this point, which is nice. I wasn't expecting to see so many today, but you can also see that these moths are really fresh. They're really fresh and dark in their coloration, dark and red. Once you get slightly later into the season, they get quite grubby looking, kind of grey. Yes, I am being mobbed by moths, Chris, thank you. You can see here, hopefully I can just show you the pheromone lure here that I've just placed here. Now, normally I'd put this inside a little cage so that they don't make too much contact with it, but I'm only going to be here for a very short period of time. One of the reasons that we often will cage these things in is that the males, when they encounter the little pheromone lure, can rub themselves all over it. You'll have seen them doing that just a second ago. And by doing so, they pick up a very small trace amount, or they potentially can pick up a very small trace amount of the pheromone compound itself, and thus end up smelling like a female, going away smelling like a female. So it's like they picked up the perfume of the lure. And there are concerns, and it's always when you're working with moths of conservation interest, many people have concerns that this could cause an effect called false female signalling. So, in other words, a male smells like a female and ends up attracting a bunch of other males. And you'll see, actually, interestingly, if you do allow the males to bundle up around a pheromone, and they do this on females sometimes as well, if you allow them to bundle up, they will try and mate with each other. So I don't know if maybe I can observe this here, if I just let a few of them actually land. We'll see what this does. You'll often see the males, because they've smelt female, but they've landed and they've seen something that looks like a female, they will try and mate with it, even though it happens to be a male. So these are all males that I'm surrounded by. I think I can probably see about 15 of them, which is a really good number. This year, last year I was here and I only saw a relatively small amount. So this is quite exceptional. I wish you could see how many are on my phone screen even at the moment, because they're landing on that because it's nice and black. So anyway, I mean, that's all I really wanted to say about it. There's a few people watching in chat. If you've got any questions about it, do ask me a question. But otherwise, these are the burnet moths, so Zygina filipendulae. And we've been using these pheromones. This is not a particularly rare species. This is quite common, this particular species. But they're in the genus. There are, you can really see these guys. In the genus, there are a number of rare British species. One in particular, Zygina viscei, which is only found in one location in Scotland. So I think we have 6 or 7 British Zygina species in total. And sometimes when we've got rare moths, these pheromones can act as a really effective way of finding something which is normally quite discreet, quite rare, quite difficult to locate. And surveys, we've done some studies to look at surveys using these methods, and they can be at least 100 times as effective as manual sampling, as people just going out looking with sweep nets and quadrats and that kind of thing. So it's a very effective way of identifying and finding an insect population, and even getting accurate counts of how many individuals there are in the population as well. So it's kind of neat, and traditionally in a lot of cases these pheromones would have been used for the purpose of finding and killing pest insects. So often you would have these pheromone lures placed inside a trap, that trap might contain a killing agent, such as a sticky trap or sometimes a pesticide. And by trapping and killing off the males in the population, you significantly suppress a pest insect, so something like codling moth. This moth is literally trying to mate with the camera. So something like codling moth is a moth that lays its larvae on apples and does quite a lot of damage to those kinds of crops. So yeah, well, I don't think I've got much more to say about it, but hopefully you can see now I'm getting really swamped with these moths. I hope that's interesting. If you've got any questions, you can always leave them in the comments. I'm going to go and do some other things now, and I'm going to get off site before I get completely swamped by moths. But I will put this in as a record for Butterfly Conservation Kent. Thanks for watching.